to another episode of MJ's Progress, Not Perfection. Today's guest is Shawn Smith. Shawn and I met in one of the recovery groups on Facebook. Turns out we have a lot in common, and we look at recovery the same way. We, look at a lot of things the same way. We had different, comings up with family life and drugs we got into and how and why. But at the end of the day, we still have the same kind of passion, which is spreading a message of hope, to help other people, to help them realize that they can get out of their mess just like we did. So I hope you enjoy this
Welcome to
episode.
the show, by the way. How much clean time do you have, Shawn?
So I have 3 years. My clean date is 11/21/18.
Nice.
But that, if you count maintenance, I only have from the 20th of November of 2020. So I actually cold turkey methadone in a detox center while I was already in recovery.
Okay.
So
Yeah, no, I count that. I mean, I consider recovery as an unmanageability. You know what I mean? Like, because I use cannabis in my recovery. And I
okay.
went to a rehab called High Sobriety in Los Angeles that taught me how to change my relationship with cannabis. Like I don't even
Wow.
smoke it, to be honest with you, because that would be too much of an instant thing where instant gratification, and that reminds me of sniffing pills and chugging drinks. So like I don't do instant. I'll take a capsule in the morning, and it'll maintain me through the day because I think better with it. And I take a capsule at night that helps me sleep. But I don't actually smoke. I'd rather just take a capsule and then wait 1 or 2 hours for it to settle in.
Right.
But yeah, man. I agree with methadone being a way to maintenance you. So that yeah, your recovery date to me is your recovery date. That's the way I feel. What was your drug of
Cool.
choice? Was it heroin?
So, all right. So people ask me this all the time. My drug of choice, if I were to pick one, yes, it was heroin. It was heroin, and it was more heroin and more heroin. But if I was to be honest with you about it, I would say anything that really took me outside of that, like dealing with my shit, dealing with like all these insecurities and all these problems and all the traumas and all the situations that I wasn't emotionally mature enough to handle. Anything that just took me outside or anything that made me feel accepted. So,
Yeah, I started drinking at 11, but I started using alcohol to escape at 12. You know what I mean? Just because I didn't know how to
okay.
deal with grief and loss. So like when the first person I knew died when I was 12, and I had already been drinking for fun from 11, now I thought I had the answer to fix my problem, and then that kind of pattern every time something bad happened continued for the rest of my teens and my 20s because I always thought I knew the solution was get fucked up. And then eventually I
Wow.
wasn't even drinking, I was using pills every day. So then
Yeah.
that was my solution every day. They always say our problem wasn't drugs and alcohol, that was our solution to our problems.
I
You know.
just did a live about that this morning.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I talk about that ad nauseum. Like my listeners are probably tired of hearing me say it, but it's the truth. How long were you in active addiction for?
So I was in active addiction. I would say, well, so I started using when I was 14 years old. I started using with alcohol and smoking weed from time to time, and it progressed. But if I were to say hard drugs, I would say about 15 years. I'm 41 now. I've been clean for 3 years from illicit drugs. And it's funny though because for mine was a slow progress. Like I kind of like went. I guess I used to call it like the high school of drugs because it was like I went from the alcohol and the weed to then I discovered like raves, and so I started doing like ecstasy and like ketamine, and then I started doing conventions with a friend who ran a horror movie convention all the time. So then I got into the cocaine, and I went back to drinking and doing cocaine, and then I the drinking is what drove my ex and my kids away. I lost them because of the drinking, and so I had this bout with God one day. I tried to overdose on sleeping pills and a fifth of Evan Williams. And yeah, that was rough. And so I had this knockdown, drag out argument with God one day in a living room of my best friend's house while he was at work. And I was cussing out God and calling him every name in the book and saying, like, how could you even exist? If you exist, how could you be such a horrible entity that would let me go through all this shit in my life? All the abuse, being molested and, being beat on by my mom's different boyfriends, my mom being an addict and all the woes, like all the shit that I've been through. And, I just cussed him out for it. And then it was just like, you know what? You don't exist anymore. And just like, I just walked away from him. And, from there, I had this fuck it mentality, because I didn't die from those sleeping pills. I just woke up like 2 days later, like on the couch in a puddle of my own vomit. And my buddy was like, bro, you need to clean that up, man. Like, good best friend, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not
Obviously made
concerned about
horrible
the throw
choices,
up.
even
Not to throw up while
right,
you're passed out. I'll let him
right. Or
sleep
the
again.
fact that I was out for 2 days straight.
Yeah, you could have
Right.
been dead. I was checking your pulse, bro.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm sure he checked my wallet for a pulse, so.
Yeah. And was your mom like what we call a serial monogamous, like where she just like went one relationship to the other?
Okay, so it's a little bit of a different story with my mother. And when I say this with complete love. My mother and I, before she passed away, there was forgiveness there. We had made amends. And she was a beautiful person, but she was also broken. My mom was a heroin addict as well. My mom was a prostitute, and so we never had a stable place to live when I was a kid. So I was in and out of different hotel rooms, hiding in closets while she was with John's. In and out of cars, sleeping at her friends' houses or sugar daddy's houses. So I never knew a stable male figure in my life, and the only male figures I did know in my life used my mother like a piece of trash. And
Were you like now you grew up what, East Baltimore? You grew up like in the city?
I grew up in Southwest Baltimore, in Morrow Park. It's what they call the dirty white boys. It's where we're from. So so I grew up out there. I grew up all over Southwest, from Pigtown to Lumberyard to Morrow Park to Lansdowne, Arbutus. You name it, I grew up all around there. So that
they're good. 41, man. You look good for 41. They always say opiates keep you young. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like when I tell somebody I'm 35,
yeah,
they're like, "You're 27." I'm like, "Opiates, man. Opiates get me young, I think."
opiates.
But you get to a certain
Absolutely.
point. I was talking to somebody about it on an episode, and she's like, "Yeah, but there's that point where, like, if you don't stop when you're supposed to, you age like 15 years overnight." So we stopped when we had to, or else it would have been real bad.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree with that, because I've seen some guys like I said, I work in recovery. I see some guys like they'll leave rehab, and then like they'll come back like a year later, and I'm like, wait,
did you just do
are
8 years of the president?
Right. Like, did I just wake up in a whole nother
Yeah.
like, what's going on? And it just, it's especially nowadays with the fentanyl out there. The fentanyl and the carfentanil out there is eating people alive. It's destroying people physically so fast. And then of course, like, all the kids love the Molly now, and they don't even realize that the Molly, all that is really, it's honestly crystal meth, amphetamines.
Yeah,
Because
it's not what it used to be back like when we were younger.
no, none of the drugs are like we used to do when we were younger.
They really not. Dude, I've heard that they're putting like fentanyl and like weed around here. I know they're putting it in coke. I know they're putting it in meth around here.
Yeah, they press it in pills now. Like, they have Xanax pills and bars, and they have presses for like Percocets and Oxy 80s, which just blows my mind, because they haven't even made a real Oxy 80 in like 10 years and in like 15 years. And like, people are like, nah, you did a real OCs. I'm like, bro, I'm telling you, that's not real.
2009, they stopped making them. That's when, like, I remember that shit. I was doing them, I remember when they came out with the gel ones and we were all butthurt. Like, that's when we all had to switch to 30s.
Yeah.
Like,
Shit. The little blue joints. Yeah.
That was my thing, dude. I was addicted, but I was addicted to them on a whole different level of I only wanted them. So I was kind of lucky, that I didn't ever want to go to dope. because I always knew once I do heroin, I'm never going to do the pills again. And I love the pills too much to give them up.
Right.
So, like, I always say that was like my first love of my life. You know how you say we have three? I always say that was my first. And
Right.
I had to write a breakup letter and everything to that shit when I went to rehab finally. Cause, like, I was one of those one and done rehab people, like, knock on some wood. Like, but I went because I wanted to go. I was tired of this. Like, I was exhausted. And I was just like, if I don't go to rehab, I'm going to kill myself straight up. Like I was trying at the end. I was mixing Coke into my perks at the end and my Xanax and breaking them up all into one line, Xanax, perks, and Coke into one line. I was trying to go, bro, and I couldn't. So I was like, well, I guess I got to do a rehab.
Yeah.
How many rehab stays did you have?
Okay, so I have seven. I have seven different rehabs that I went to, and one of them I went 3 times. So really, it was 10 altogether, and it was a journey. My recovery started. I'll tell you exactly when my recovery started. So one of the last runs that I had, real runs that I had, it was a 10-year run. All right, with me and my ex-girlfriend. I won't say her name because I don't want to break her anonymity. But she's doing very well now, by the way. She's getting ready to have a baby. I'm so happy for her and proud of her. Like she's doing this recovery thing for real. She's a soldier. But yeah, so we were living together, and two broken people who had been abandoned their whole lives, and had been traumatized their whole lives, and just found solace in each other. We found peace in each other, and we did drugs together, and that's how most of drug relationships are. And we thought that we couldn't live without one another. And so in a depression state, I had been in a depressive state for like that past 4 months, where I didn't even want to get out of bed to get the money to get high, or to even go get high. I just didn't care anymore about anything. That's a low place, like spiritually, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We just like zero fucks given about anything, like, so I went out, and I was so desperate that I live by a hospital, and I went into the parking garage, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna like go by the pay to park thing, and the first person that and it sounds horrible, but this is my truth. The first person that I can kind of be stronger than and manhandle, like an old person or whatever, or a woman, I'm just gonna like snatch the money out of their hand and run, to go get a pill. And this old guy comes out with this old lady, and they're walking into the parking, like through the building and in the parking garage, right? And he's got a patch over his eye, you know what I mean? He's an older guy. He's like probably like 70 or 80 years old, right? And I'm like, easy target, right? And he gets to the pay to park thing, and he goes to put the $20 in, and I'm nervous. I'd never done anything like this before. I'm like, so my inner self is battling myself, and I'm like, they're like, Shawn, don't do this, dude. Don't do this. Don't do this, dude. You're better than this. These people are innocent. You know what I mean? Don't make them part of this. But that demon, that addiction was like, man, fuck that. Get this shit. Like, you're going to be sick, and you know it. You're already here. Let me give you some bubble guts. And like, that's how it works. And I was just like, okay. And he had the wallet in his hand, and I went to grab his wallet. And when I did, he held on to it. He didn't let go. And I wasn't going to put up a real fight. So like, I kind of yanked it like once or twice. And his wife like grabs me by the shoulders and starts screaming, let him go, let him go, let him go. And like, I'd like kind of like numbed out, like, you know what I mean? Like blanked out. And then I I just kind of froze. And like, I kind of came back to mentally, like I didn't black out, but I came back to mentally, and I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? This is horrible. And so like the coward that I am, I like let go of the wallet and I ran off, you know? And, I went back to my apartment, and I hid, and I sat under the covers, like just crying about like how much of a piece of shit I was, and like, of course I, got some money to get dope or whatever later on from my girlfriend. And, 2 days later I was walking, cause I used to do this little hustle, con things that I used to do to make money. And so I'm walking past the hospital again, and this sheriff pulls over, and he's like, hey, you sit on the steps. And I'm like, okay. And I knew, I just knew, and like, he's like, he had a picture on a piece of loose, or not loose leaf paper, but like a piece of like printer paper, and it was my picture of me coming out of the building. And he's like, "That's you." And I was like, "Yeah, it is." And I sat down on the steps right there on the stoop, right there on Monument Street, and I could have ran. This guy was a huge guy. He did not look like he was trying to like, do anything important to like, keep his job. But, I was just done. I was just done running. I was done with all the pain. And I was like, you know what? In my head, I was like, I could go to jail and do this time, or do whatever they're going to do to me. And maybe it'll help, That's sad when you'd rather go to jail to feel safe than to be out on the streets, right? Like it's kind of horrible.
Yeah.
But that's where I was in my life, And then I went to jail, and I did good. I didn't, because people get high in jail. Let's be real, like, what I mean, you can get dope, coke, Molly, you can get Suboxone, you can get whatever
Half
you
the
want.
people I talk to get high, the other half don't. It's so funny. Everybody I talk to about jail, I always ask about, what their experience was. And half of them said, no, I was still getting high. And then there's the handful like you that are like, no, I was straight when I was in jail. I was just trying to get out of there.
Yeah, and I did all the right things. Like when I got locked up, I don't know if you saw on my TikTok, like my journey of I weighed 122 pounds when I got locked up. 120, and now mind you, right now I weigh 210. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's a whole nother Shawn that I added on to me, but I weighed like, 122 pounds. I'm a skinny, dope fiend white boy going into central booking in Baltimore, you know what I mean? Which is like, they call it Bodymore Murderland. That's the nickname. We are literally the trenches down here. And, and the gang life in jails is really huge. And I knew I didn't want to owe anybody anything at all. I'm too pretty and I'm too skinny. There, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Was your
So,
hair long then too?
No, it wasn't.
No,
Thank God.
okay. Give him something to hold on to.
Right. The saddle horn, right? Yeah. But yeah, so I went in there, and it's sad when it's like, when you haven't eaten proper nutrition in so long, right? And that you've been eating like potato chips and Mountain Dew as your diet for the last like 10 years. And all of a sudden, like, you get this prison food, right? And everybody else is telling you how horrible it is. And you're like, are you kidding me? This is fucking delicious. This is food. Give me that. Give me that. Give me that. I mean, I just started eating everything I could, and I gained like probably 45 pounds in a period of 4 months in jail. It was pretty quick, and it wasn't fat. It was like body, because I was working out every day. I started reading the Bible again, and started like, having like these, doing prayer circles and stuff like that. And the
How old
problem
were
with
you?
that was, so that at that point I was 36. I was 35 or 36. I was 35. And so here's where I was like, you know what? I was like, I think I can do this thing. And I said to myself, I was like, you know what? When I get out of here, I want to go to rehab. That's exactly what I said. And, a couple of people were like, well, if you're already clean in here, you ain't got to worry about rehab. I'm like, no, I think there's more that I need to know about this stuff. You know what I mean? And so I got offered the 8507, which is like pretty much like drug court, but it's like, you go to a rehab, you go to a rehabilitation facility for 6 months, men's long-term care. And, but the judge has to approve it. And the people, like, you might have to do your time, like 50% of your time, you know what I mean? And then you go, you know what I mean? So I was like, didn't do it to try to get out of jail. I did it because I just wanted to have a better life. The problem is that I wanted that better life, not just for me, but mainly because I still wanted my ex in my life. Or at the time, she was my girlfriend. I wanted her in my life, and I wanted us to just have a perfect life and this perfect fantasy life, you know what I mean? Where we were clean and we were living our life and doing the damn thing. And so, again, being a white kid, white guy, skinny and, not really trying to, be affiliated with anything or anyone in jail. I wasn't getting on the phones, nobody was letting me get on the phones, and, that was probably a good thing, so I get in the courtroom, and it's the old guy who had the patch over his eye and his wife and the director of security for Johns Hopkins and the Baltimore City sheriff that was there that locked me up, and the director of Hopkins wanted me to go to jail. She wanted me to do time for assault and all this shit. Like, she was like trying to like drill me hard, you know what I mean? And I deserved it. I knew in my heart I was like, I deserve it. I didn't contest any of it. I didn't say no, well this, that. I didn't. I just looked at it, I was like, you're right. The only thing I wanted to do was apologize to those people for what I did. You know, because I'm not a fucking piece of shit. I may have done piece of shit stuff, but I'm not a piece of shit.
Yeah.
I don't think any of us are. I really
No,
don't.
there's a big difference between survival mode and, you know what I mean? Like, because when you're in survival mode, anything that we did in our addiction, if we didn't do it in that time, we could have died or we could have been seriously injured. You know what I mean? Or
Right.
hurt ourselves. Like, that's the way I look at it. You know, that's the way I can accept my past. That's the way I can sleep at night, you know, and know the things I've done. I mean, I made a ton of amends so far because I started my recovery April 25th, 2018. So right around
Wow.
you know what I mean? So like I've been going through, you know, there's still a lot of amends I haven't made yet because either I haven't gotten a chance or I'm not ready yet or they're not ready yet, you know, because there
Right.
is them not being ready
I'm
too.
with that. I have the
Yeah.
same situation going on with me. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Same
like,
situation.
but I can't, if I was to look back and dwell on all the shit I did, I would never sleep at night. You know what I mean?
Oh, God, no.
What we've
God,
done,
no.
we've done. We can't change it. All we can do is continue to be a good person going forward and try to lead by example, principles over personalities, that kind of shit. Where people they want what we have. You know, I want that now, as opposed to before, where they wanted what I had because I had pills for them. You know, so you
Exactly.
know now I just try to keep doing the right thing and hope that people are like, hey, what are you doing that I could? How do you do that? I never thought you'd be sober. I'd rather get that phone call than the phone calls like, yeah, you fucked up again. Because I got plenty of those phone calls from either family or friends or, you know, like, you know, I embezzled 10 grand for my own company that I worked for my dad. You
Wow.
know, you know what I mean? And I paid him back out of my paycheck, you know, $500 at a time while still in addiction. And he still didn't raise questions to me, you know, but I made that financial amends and everything. But like, I went to rehab and he was like, what did you go to rehab for? Weed? Because he thought I was just smoking weed. And I'm like, no,
Right.
I've been back on pills for like years, like every day. You know, he's like, oh, okay, like, see you later. Like he was just like, you know, what's he really gonna say? I was the oldest kid, only want to go to rehab, but you know, at least I did it once, you know, because I was ready. They asked me to go in my 20s a lot, and I just wasn't. I was like, listen, you're gonna make me go, and I'm gonna come back. I'm gonna relapse. It's gonna be a waste of 30 grand. Like I'm not
Right.
ready. I'm not ready yet. Simple as
Right.
that. You know, what
Yeah.
made you finally ready at 30, 38?
Um. So, I mean, okay. So, I had I had an awakening, as they can say. Um. You know. Again, when I was locked up, I thought I knew what I was doing and went to rehab. I went to Gaudenzia for 6 months, and this is still when I'm 36 years old. I went to Gaudenzia, and I thought I had everything together and everything ready, and I'd worked on some stuff, but I was still just trying to get clean for someone else. I wasn't trying to get clean for me. I was trying to get clean for me and my ex, and I wanted to be, that patriarch, that one that broke the chain, right? And to give her all the things I ever wanted to give her and to be able to make all these amends for all these things, right? And when I got out, though, she was with someone else. And I didn't know. There was no closure. There was no, I don't want to be with you anymore. And there was one thing I knew that would give me that warm hug that I always knew would. And I ran right back to that bitch, you know? And, and I didn't last long out there. It was like maybe like 5 or 6 days. And I realized I needed more help. So I went to another recovery center and wasn't I was still boohooing and butthurt about it. You know what I mean? So I was only trying to get clean to show her that, like, be with me, be with me. It was a back and forth battle for a while. But until 3 years ago, when I was 38, I had to accept the fact that she wasn't coming back and that I would never be able to love anybody if I wasn't able to love myself. Nobody would ever be able to love me if I couldn't love myself. But I didn't realize that at that moment until after this one situation I'm about to tell you happened. So I'm in a recovery center and I'm sitting on the couch on Saturday mornings watching cartoons, eating a bowl of cereal, and what should have been a great day. And I just couldn't stop crying. Like, I'd always cried in silence in the shower or under my covers or like under a pillow or when nobody else was in the room, you know, because I was brought up, you were not allowed to cry. You do not cry. Don't cry in front of people. That's weakness. And I ain't raised no bitch. You know what I mean? That kind of shit. And that came from my mother. You know what I mean? But I just couldn't, it just wouldn't contain anymore. It just would not, I couldn't control it and couldn't contain it anymore. And, it was just what it was. I started crying, and some guy came in the rehab center or the recovery house, the sober living house, and he said, "Hey, be careful if you know anybody that's using, don't go buy that shit around the corner that they're selling because like one pill or half a pill is killing people." And I had always been suicidal. You know, I'd always had severe depression and bipolar 1, and underlying mental health issues that I never addressed really. You know, something inside of me told me to go get 3 of those pills and to go get a rig and to go in a bando in a basement where nobody would find me and just go take myself out. And I didn't have any fear of it, you know, never been afraid to die. Never. Just been afraid to live, you know. Hurts to live, you know. At the time it hurt to live. It just hurt. It just I didn't know my worth. I didn't know what the greatness that was inside of me. I didn't know like the great things that I was going to do in my life, you know, or that I could even do these great things in my life, you know. I'd always been haunted by my guilt, shame, remorse, resentments, and all my insecurities and all my fears. They held me down like this giant weight on me, you know. And I felt comfortable in that sad place for a long time. And I just had a moment where I didn't want to live anymore, and I went and did that, and I OD'd, you know. I OD'd, and I'll give you the short version. I woke up in sub-level 2 in the morgue in Johns Hopkins. They had declared me dead at 6:17 in the afternoon on June 14th of 2018. And I was dead. I had to fight for 8 months in the Hall of Vital Records to get my name taken off my death certificate. That's crazy, right? Like,
that's how dead you were. Like you were like, yeah, like people were like, oh yeah, like I died and they brought me back, but you were like dead and about to go into like the refrigerator, like toe tag and all.
Yeah, and like the thing was, this is the crazy part of it. This is the crazy part about fentanyl, right? And what's been going on in our epidemic. So this happened so often, right, that when I did wake up, the nurse who was zipping up the bag just looked at me and goes, "Oh, he's back." And just unzip the bag and like it was like, you know, normally you'd figure she'd be like, "Oh my God, it's a priest came back to life. He's alive." But no, they were just like, "Up, he's back." And then they hit this red button. Got another one, right? They hit this red button on the side of the wall, and the nurses from ICU came down and take me back up to ICU. They put me on a ventilator, so I had a tube down my throat to help me breathe. I kind of went in and out of consciousness. But during that time that I was gone, I did have a near-death experience. I'm not going to call it God. I'm not going to call it angels. I don't know exactly what it was, but I know what I saw and what I heard and what I felt. And instantly in that NDE, I was sitting on my grandmother's floor in her bedroom, and I was young again. I remember looking down at my arms and my legs, and I was like 5 years old again. And I was like, what is going on? And like, I was like, the fuck is going on? And like, the door opens up, and like, it's my mom. Now, my mom has been dead for like 8 years. You know what I mean? And you know, it was my mom in the doorway, and she used to do this thing where she'd come up and she would grab my face, and she would look at me and she would kiss me on my head and tell me, she's like, "It's going to be okay. I'm going to get us out of this one day. I promise you, Mommy's going to get clean." And she grabbed my face and she kissed me on my head, and she looked me dead in my eyes, and she's like, "Shawn, what are you doing?" She's like, "Shawn, I love you." but I need you to love yourself. I need you to realize that you have so much inside of you, and you're going to do things for people that you never even imagined. You're going to go places and talk to people that you would have never dreamed. But you need to get out of this nightmare first. And I woke up. And it was like all of a sudden, like I just something, like I didn't have to ask. It's just something just clicked. Like I just knew all this, like all the answers. Because honestly, let's be real, all the answers are already inside of us. Everything we already need to know is already deep in our heart. You just got to be willing enough to like dig down and kind of like hunt for it, you know?
Listen
And
to it.
listen. That's the thing.
Yeah, you have
Yeah.
to, because like I always say, like when I meditate, my subconscious is talking, like I have to listen to it though, because that's the problem is, like I feel, at least for me, I'm talking for me, when I was in addiction, I was so like, my ego gets so big, I'm just like, anything my subconscious has to say was wrong. You know what I mean? Like, you got to stop doing this, JD. Shut the fuck up. You don't know what the hell you're talking about, man. I know that I got this. You know, like, you just keep
Right.
telling it to shut up the entire time because it's screaming to stop. It's screaming, don't do that. It's screaming, you're a
Right.
moron. Don't do that shit anymore. And, you know, I almost died. I was in Pennsylvania and I would drive to Jersey, 4 or 5 times a week, about 2 hours each way to pick up pills. And the one time I'm driving on the turnpike, I took Xanax a lot, and I blacked out while I was driving. I was like, oh shit, I'm 30 miles from my exit. Okay, I'm almost in Philly. I'll be getting my pills soon. And then a minute later, I came to, and I was 30 miles past my exit, going 90 miles an hour in my
Wow.
old Crown Vic that I was driving. So like I'm driving this police cop car going 90 miles per hour, completely blacked out for like 60 miles. No recollection whatsoever of any. And then what did I do? I buy more Xanax. You know what I mean? As I'm yelling
Right.
at myself, don't
Absolutely.
buy anymore. You almost just died. And I said, shut up. I'm not going to take it before I drive this time, idiot. Like, like, no, like that was my justification. Well, I won't do it before I drive. Just the 30s, because the 30s help me drive better. That's
Right.
stupid shit. Well, my logic was, and this was gross. I was just telling somebody earlier, like you get really good at catching your own vomit and swallowing it when you drive a lot while you're withdrawing. Like, it's unfortunate, but like I would, get so close, and the closer I got to getting my pills, the more I would start withdrawing. The closer I got, the
Yes.
more it would hurt. And I would be like in traffic, like catching it and like swallowing it back down. This way I wouldn't make a mess all over my car. And this way I could keep just
Yeah.
driving to get to my goal. Some of the grossest shit, but like we were gross. Let's be real. Like the shit we were doing
Exactly.
wasn't sanitary, like,
Exactly.
but we did it nonetheless because we thought we needed it, and so that was June when you had that. What happened over the next few months to where you were still on the fence, or did you have just like a momentary lapse?
No, I did not. I knew that I needed to do something. I knew that for the first time in my life, I knew that I didn't know what I was doing. I just knew that I took that mask off. That ego was gone. The lie was dead. I didn't know what I was doing, and I knew that I needed help. Sorry, I had to get out of the sun for a second.
No, you're good.
And I knew that I needed some help. And so I came to a realization that like, what can I do? And so the one recovery center that I was at, I had always heard about this place, and I will just say their name only because this place saved my life. This place called Valley Bridge, and they're a very strict program. I mean, it's very militant. They don't take bullshit. They don't listen to rationalizations or justifications. They tell you exactly what you need to hear and not what the fuck you want to hear. They turn what we call the bitch voice down and the get real voice up. Because we all have that one voice in our head that says, it's okay. It's okay. You've been through a lot. It's just one more is okay. They don't know what you've been through, and I'm here for you. That's that bitch voice. And that get real voice is, so what? You've been through some shit. Everybody's been through some shit. What are you going to do about it? You're going to sit there and cry about it like a little girl? Or are you going to get up off your fucking ass for the first time in your life and be a real man and actually stand up for yourself and stand up for everything that you love? Because that's what it's about. And I'd never been talked to like that before. Remember, I came from I never had any men in my house. I never had any positive male role models that not only told me what I needed to hear, but cared about me and was there to willing to help me. They'll let me fall, but they'll also be there to help pick me up.
Yeah.
But they're also going to show me how to not fall. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it was an amazing adventure. But what happened was I go to this program, right? And this isn't a place you get referred to. You have to go and ask the director himself if you qualify to get in there. All right. And he had seen me for a while. His name is Mr. Tony. And this guy is a saint. All right. And so I went to him and I said, Mr. Tony, I need help. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. And tears in my eyes. I said, I just overdosed yesterday. They let me out. But I'm scared and I don't know what I'm doing. I know I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to live like this anymore. And he looked at me. He was like, well, you got to go to detox, right? Because we don't do detox here. He's like, this is a program where people are actually trying to get clean, not where people are trying to fucking still, do the dumb shit. And I was like, okay. So he goes, I'm going to send you to Turk House. He sent me to a place called Turk House. And he sent another guy that works at the Bridge House voluntarily, by the way, because most of these people that come in there are alumni and they volunteer to come in their time to help guys that are in there that are new. That's the hard about giving back. You know what I mean? Which is huge in our program, in the program I was in. And I'm alumni now. So like I do the same thing. I go back on Saturdays and I go help out no matter what's going on. We go and we do community work. That's what we do. Yeah. Because you got to give it away to keep that shit. Just be real. And so this guy named Sykes, and I hated this guy Sykes. He was arrogant. He was prideful. He was always doing the right thing. He was everything I wanted to be, but like I was too scared to be. He didn't care what people thought about him. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I fucking hated this guy, but this guy came in every day while I was laying in that boat, throwing up and shitting and pissing on myself and praying to a God I hope existed to get me out of that pain. And he came by, he made it a point to every morning come by and ask me how I was doing, if I needed anything. And then every night he would come by and he would pray with me. You know what I mean? And, the only thing in Turk House that helped alleviate any of the pain was that hot shower beating on your back. You know what I mean? And so I did that and I went through that. And when I came out, I was gung-ho and I was ready. I get to Valley Bridge and I learned a lot there, man. I learned about how to really accept shit because they do the psychoanalytical side, of recovery, like breaking down your cognitive, and I've always been interested in psychology, that was my thing. So my counselor there, Miss, can I say her name? I won't say her name. Okay, Miss Monica. She's amazing. She's that woman. Cool, you know what I mean? Like those people that are in your life that just when you think about them, you're just like, thank you God for putting that person in my life. Like I don't know what I would have done without her. She was one of those people. She taught me you don't have to pick up everybody's trash, and you're more than what you think you are. At every turn, I don't care how great you think you are. There is more greatness deep down inside of you. You just got to dig for it. I learned from all the people there about acceptance, accepting the fact that I can't control shit that goes on around me. I can't control any of the situations. A guy could run up right now with a gun in his hand and put it in my head and say, give me all your money. And I can't do anything about that. If somebody leaves, if my girlfriend leaves me, I can't do shit about that. I could try to persuade her not to, but if she wants to go, she wants to go. I can't control people. I can't control places. I can't control things or situations. Half the time, I can't even control my own fucking emotions. You know what I mean?
Or you definitely can't control your first thought. You can control what you do with your first thought, like not act it out or sit with it, or like sometimes I'm like, that was a weird one. You know what I mean? Because everyone. But you can't control that first thought. People have
the only thing you can control is your behaviors. You can control your behaviors and your circumstances and your consequences. That's it. So the best way to be able to control your behaviors is to try to control your thoughts. And what you do by that is, and because when I was in the beginning of recovery, my first thought is always wrong, because my first thought wants me to run. It wants me to use that fight or flight method and go towards the thing that is going to give me comfort the most and run from that pain, whether it be emotional, physical, mental, or spiritual. It's going to have me run. So what do I do with it? So I need to build a network. And so the way that I learned to build a network, and this might sound a little different, I don't know if you've ever heard this way before, but when I built my network, I built my network knowing that I was at war, right? So let's get one thing straight. I'm at war every day, right? I'm battling every day inside here, right? This is where the war zone is, right? So so if I'm in a war, right, and this is my kingdom, right? What protects a kingdom and what fights in a war? An army. You need a fucking army. You need an army. You need Marines, Navy SEALs. You need technicians. You need doctors. You need everything. You need the whole thing an army has to offer. So I use my psychiatrists. I use my therapist. I use my relationship therapist. I use my family therapist. I use my sponsor. I use my sponsee brothers. I use my network. I use my social media network. I use my friend. I have what I call positive influencing friends, people that are in my life that are positive influencers that only want the best for me and challenge me every day to be the best that I can be. You know that I do the motivational speaking. So I've always been fascinated with motivational speakers, Les Brown, David Goggins, Earl Nightingale. I mean, these guys are guys that really have honed in and learned to take that pain and turn that pain into power, but not only turn that pain into power, but turn that power into purpose. You know what I mean? Because if I look at everything in my life as negative, like I always did, I'm always going to get the same result of my consequences, right? So to change my thoughts, I have to change my perception of things. I got to be able to learn how to turn every negative into a positive.
And people need to be reminded that we do have the choice to choose the positive over the negative. You know, we have that choice. You know, that is something that happiness, you know, in general is a choice. You have the choice to wake up and see that it's raining and go, oh shit, my day is screwed, it's raining. And then you get out of bed with that attitude. You're carrying that with you. But you wake up and you see it's raining, you're like, oh cool, it's going to cool down a little bit today. The plants are going to get watered. Now the traffic's going to suck, but I can take my time going to work, so I'll have an excuse. It'll be a good day. You carry that with you. That happiness is not a feeling. Happiness is a choice that you can have. And when you're already choosing to be happy, that perspective is going to be a positive perspective when you see things. And you're not going to go straight to the negative. And if you do go to the negative first, think for a second and find the positive, because that's just straight science that with every positive, there's a negative too. With every negative, there's a positive. Just look for it. It's there, even in death. You know, like my first fiance committed suicide, and it's a damn shame, and I miss her every day. But guess what? She's not in pain anymore. Her schizophrenia isn't driving her insane anymore. She doesn't have to drink until the voices go away anymore. You know, these are all things that I can find solace in, to know that when she's not here, at least she's not in pain. You know, and you can do that with anything that you want to, where you can, oh shit, that's as horrible as it can be. And then I challenge people all the time at meetings. Give me something negative. I'll switch it for you. I'll switch it. And they do, and I switch them. You know, I give them where the positive side is. You just need to open up your mind enough to accept what the positives are, because we're already taking all the negatives anyway. Why not?
And that's where that spiritual principle of open-mindedness comes in. You know, I mean, I don't just, you know, and you're right. You're absolutely right. You know, you can't, because recovery is more than just about, you know, like you said earlier, it's not just about the drugs and alcohol. The drugs and alcohol were just fuel that were on top of a fire that was already burning. You know, this fire had been burning for years. We never even knew when the fire started. It doesn't matter. What matters is that now we got the gasoline off. Now we can start to identify where the fire is coming
originated.
from. You know?
Where did it come from? Why did I start? Where did that fire begin, and to blow up to it, engulfing in flames where I couldn't even see what the problem was anymore, because the fire became the problem, not the origination.
Exactly. And if you spend your time trying to put out just the flames and not the actual thing that's burning, then it's always going to be flames. You're just going to be, it's a never ending fight, and you're going to drive yourself insane. And eventually, it's biology, bro. If you keep doing that and you burn out, you're going to get overwhelmed and you're just going to fall again. It's biology. I don't care. You can be Superman. Even Superman fell, you know? I mean, but the thing is like you got to get to that root core, and that's where my army comes in. My army comes in because like there are days where like I'm not the strongest soldier on the field, you know.
You
I
said
can't. And
something on one of your TikToks. What's your TikTok, by the way? Recovery Radio One. Is that what it
yes,
is?
so it's recovery radio one, recovery underscore radio underscore one. And so what I focus mainly on is real talk and recovery and motivation and inspiration, you know,
You
to try
said
to.
something that caught my attention about tools the other day, about picking up a hammer. I like that a lot. You want to
Yeah.
talk about that?
Yeah. So you know, all these different aspects of recovery, and again, I don't care if you're just recovering from drugs and alcohol, a food addiction, sex addiction, anger, being a workaholic, anything that makes your life unmanageable or you become powerless over, and that has really caused horrible consequences to you or is causing detrimental consequences to you, that's fucking with you, you know. There's aspects of recovery. There are different venues to get help, you know, and it doesn't have to just be NA or CDA or Celebrate Recovery. It could be anything. I don't care. Like I said before, I don't care if you get your recovery from a doorknob, right? But whatever tools that are put down in front of you to use, right, to put in your tool belt, like say you're in treatment, right, and they give you all these things about acceptance and surrender and things, and coping skills and mechanisms. These are all tools, right? Whatever your therapist says, whatever these people say, these are tools, but they only work if you use them. All right. If I have a chainsaw on the ground, okay, I could have the most expensive chainsaw. It could be the most awesomest competition tournament style chainsaw in the world. All right. And if I have a tree right next to it, guess what? It is not going to cut down that fucking tree until I pick that tool up and use it. No matter how fancy and shiny and amazing it looks and how much I polish it, until I pick it up and use it, it's not going to work. I could talk about that chainsaw all day, tell you how amazing the chainsaw is, but it's still not going to cut down the tree until you use it.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing with the tools in recovery, you know, step work or therapy or sharing, listening, you know, coping skills, you know, all these different tools that they give us. I mean, they're out there. You don't, and you know, I had to learn a long time ago that I can't wait around, all right, for someone to tell me what I need in my recovery. I got to search for that shit. So there's times everybody that knows me will tell you, I'll be online Googling new ways of recovery. You know, I just did a talk, you know, the other day. I wanted to know about different ways people have recovered, you know, all different ways that they've recovered, you know, and it's amazing. If you look at my comments, like there's people from all over the world that have said different ways that they've recovered, whether it be maintenance or whether it be therapy or whether it be family bonding or whether it be spirituality. I mean, there's so many different modalities of recovery out there. It's like, why would you limit yourself to just one, you know?
And not only that, like you can use different recoveries not specifically for different things. Like I went to AA, even though like I am an alcoholic and I identify as one, alcohol definitely led me to pills, but my life didn't become unmanageable until pills. But still, I like AA better. And but on top of that, like you mentioned sex addict, I had a sex addict on a couple months ago, and he was recovering from a porn addiction, and he almost lost his family, and the behaviors were all the same. Like his wife shut down the internet, so he's stealing money from his restaurant. He's working at to buy porn. This
Yeah.
was like 5 years ago, and he still felt like he had to buy porn just because he was that hard up. But he went to AA meetings. He went to CA meetings, Cocaine Anonymous, because there wasn't enough sex and love meetings for him. So he was going to AA meetings. He was going to CA, and he's like, I related to every single person that talked. Maybe we looked
Absolutely.
different because my life, porn didn't make my body look, bad like drugs and alcohol do. But like I related to all the behaviors and all the thought processes and the lying and all that kind
Yeah,
of stuff.
sneaking around,
And
the
yeah,
sneaking around, the line, the manipulation, all of it. It's
oh, I
all the
mean,
same.
the
The pain is all the
manipulation,
same.
the
Pain is
manipulation's a
all the
big one.
same.
That w-
Huge manipulation.
it was a big on my step 6. It was a big one for me, where I had a couple talks with my therapist and with my sponsor about me not wanting to drop my manipulation, because like I'm a
Right,
salesman.
because you felt it got. Yeah, exactly. Same here. Like I feel as though that there are certain aspects of I felt for a long time there were certain aspects of my addiction that actually can still be used, but in a positive manner. But I had to drop a lot of that. I mean, there's some things like my drive, my motivation, and my intelligence and my quick thinking. That's one thing. But when it comes to like manipulating situations, working the fence, that type shit, I had to give all that up because really at the end of the day, I do my daily inventory. I do my step 10 and
Yeah.
I'm like, what the fuck, bro? Like, like I'm still a piece of shit,
Yeah, I
So
was told as long as I am not self-serving, if I'm manipulating somebody that's going to only help them and not help me, then that would be more okay. Like if I'm manipulating somebody to get help, if I'm manipulating somebody in order to do something in recovery, it's going to benefit them, but in no way benefit me, then they would see that as a different way. It's not even manipulating, that's just being strategic in how you're talking and
right.
choosing your words wisely. But you could at least feel like you were manipulating like you used to. I was like,
Right.
man, I'm a set. Like I was worked in sales my entire life, so like all my 20s, like I had a job all through my addiction. That's what kept me going for so long, was I was always working. And when you're working, you can fool everybody, even yourself.
Yeah, I know.
you
I was a
know
bartender. I was a bartender the whole time. So like I literally did the same thing. And then even the last like I'd say 6 years, 5 years, that was really bad in my addiction, like my active addiction. I was I had a con. Remember I was telling you earlier I had a con and hustles that I used to do. I wasn't going to get too deep into it, but and I'm not proud of this, but I created a fake fundraiser that I would go around. I had a jacket, a student medical jacket that I wore with a lanyard, and I had a clipboard that I'd walk around. And I would go into different businesses and I would tell people that I was collecting money for a cancer organization that didn't exist, for kids that were sick that didn't exist. And at the time, I thought that was awesome. I thought that was something slick. And, when I think back on it, it was horrible. And when I was able to drop those, not well, I dropped that a long time ago. But when I got to step 6, and I had to drop my manipulations and all my lies and all my cunningness, and all the slick shit, you know, after about a year of really like focusing on like not manipulating anymore, you start to be able to notice more manipulation that goes on around you.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? You know what I'm talking about, right? Like you'll start
Yeah.
seeing, you'll go to meetings and like you'll start seeing, you'll start not seeing like focusing on, but you'll observe like new girls come in, right? And then the guys that sit around them, the 13th steppers as we call
Oh
them,
my god. Yeah, I
those
know
those,
them. I
those
always
pieces
thought.
of shit, like yeah,
Yeah.
those pieces of garbino, and it's like, then you start like, and you're able to like, and then when you're able to drop that stuff, right, and you become more open minded, and then you're able to be to a point where when somebody tells you, hey, this isn't cool, you know what I mean? Like for instance, Chrissy from Life After Addiction, right?
Yeah, she'll be on
Okay,
Friday.
she's a rock star, dude. That
Yeah.
girl, she's awesome. So I got to hold myself accountable about something, about like what was it, about maybe 7 or 8 months ago. I was on the site, and so I had, one of the girls had like commented to me, right? And so I like commented back, and then like she, like the girl, like IM'd me, and then I inboxed her, and then it kind of got to flirting a little bit, you know what I mean? And then like, so like Chrissy jumped straight in my shit. She came to me, she was like, hey, she was like, not cool, bro. She's like, that's not what we're here for. Da, da, da. And then Matt Weber, another great friend of mine, came in and held me accountable too. And I was like, holy shit. And I didn't even look at it like that. Like I was not trying to be like freaky or weird or anything like that. But I thought about it. I was like, holy shit, bro. Like I could have just fucked with somebody's recovery. Like that's crazy. And those are the type of friends we need in life. The ones
Yeah.
that tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. You know what I mean? And that's like,
We
that's where
called
that's
we called it not co-signing your bullshit. That's what we
exact
said, like in rehab. Like, hey, I'm not gonna co-sign your bullshit. Like that's
right.
like the term my friends in recovery and I use with each other. Is like, I'm not co-signing that, bro.
Exactly.
Like, yeah, and
Exactly.
we saw it all, and especially early in recovery, you see it often because then you're still trying to get rid of the behaviors. because all
Yeah.
the behaviors are still there, just the drugs aren't. And
Yeah.
like you said, like it takes a lot of like self-reflection and therapy. Like I was like you, I dove headfirst into therapy. Like I had like 3 different therapists, and one I talked to about one thing, like one was all relationships. I was like, I
Yeah.
don't know how to be in a relationship. I've had one serious girlfriend. We were best
That's
friends since kids, and she committed suicide. I need help with this so I don't have that happen again. And she's like, all right, I got you. Because that was my second love. My first love was pills. We established that. My second love
right.
was Colleen. That was my childhood best friend. And then my third love is my wife now.
Right.
And I wouldn't be any good to my wife now like I was back then. That's for
Yep.
damn sure. And
Yeah.
we met at like 340 days sober, and I was like, I can't get serious. And we met on Tinder, so we weren't going to get serious anyway right away. But let's be real. But it was like, I need some time. Like, I need at least a year sober, like straight up early on before we can get serious. She's like, yeah, that's fine. And then, like, we were serious, but without any titles. Like, we were really happy. But when I came back from LA with my 1 year, I proposed. I was like, all right, we're going to go from dating to just being engaged. So we've been
Right.
together ever since. But I needed that year. I needed that
Yeah.
full year of me and concentrating only on me, as selfish as it sounds, but we need that.
No, no, not at all. And the greatest thing, I think one of the most beautiful things about this, right, is that I can honestly sit back and look back on my life and look back on my addiction and say, I'm glad I had an addiction. I'm glad I had the life I had, because if not, I would have never found recovery. And if I would have never found recovery, I would have never been able to be a father to my son. I would have never been able to be a father to my stepchildren. I would have never been able to be a husband to my wife. And not only just a husband or a father, but a good one. Like one that knows boundaries, one that knows and how to not put expectations on people, but to be able to challenge people, to be compassionate, to be empathetic, to be understanding, to learn how to listen, to be able to communicate. Communication is huge with people. That's the biggest part of relationships. If I can't call my wife and say, Thelma, you know, uh, I kind of don't really like the situation that happened last night. It really got under my skin, and here's why. Here's how I feel about it, and it brings up these feelings, and it brings up some old stuff from back in the day. And maybe I need to work on this. Maybe this is the universe telling, or God telling me I need to work on this. Or maybe it's just saying that we maybe need to readjust our boundaries. And then instead of me saying, you know, you know, you're a cheater, or you're, this or you're that, which sometimes, I'm not saying the cheater part, but like sometimes I'll be accusational. I'm not going to say I'm perfect. I'm no Buddha, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? But I'm nothing like what I was in my 20s or my 30s, and I'm definitely nothing like what I was when I was in addiction. And like, I'm able to communicate. And another thing is that in recovery, I've learned how to say I'm sorry and that I was wrong, and hold
Yeah.
myself accountable. Because, as an addict, I don't know about you, but for me, my favorite thing was rationalizing everything I did,
Oh,
everything and anything.
I had so many excuses for everything that made it okay. Like,
Yep.
and I was going to talk till I was blue in the face to prove that I was not wrong. And you need to listen to me. I'm right. And
Right.
that was the first thing I had to squash. I loved hearing how right I was all the time. I still, it doesn't bother me when someone tells me you were right. Nowadays it still doesn't bother me, but I was like pushing for it then.
Right.
I had to be right, and if I wasn't right, it's on me, and I'm going to take it out on myself. I'll show you who's right. It's one of those I'll show you. And I read about it. Like what was? Do you read Just for Today?
Absolutely.
So today's is about rebellion and being
Right.
rebellious, and like, I was always punishing myself over my own thoughts because like, oh yeah, you think I'll do that? Well, watch what I do now. And
Right.
just all I knew was hurt myself more. It was never
Yeah. And like,
productive.
yeah. And I was talking to somebody in my network today when we did the Just for Today this morning. And I was like, those moments where like, you're fucking wrong. and that point in the conversation where you just realize, fuck, I'm wrong, but you still, fuck it, I'm gonna fucking run with this bitch. I'm gonna run with this knife until I stab myself. And it's like, why can't I just, now I work really hard. Sometimes I'm not always perfect, but it's I work really hard. I'll stop in the middle of the conversation and be like, shit, you're right. And I'm not just saying that to appease you. I just realized I'm an idiot sometimes, and I just jumped the gun. My bad. Or I'll say, and another thing I had to learn how to say was, I don't know. That's because I'm the same way. I'm a smart guy. I'm highly intelligent, high IQ, and all that stuff. That means nothing in the recovery world, though. By the way,
Most of us have that in the recovery world. Most of us are intelligent, and we're almost too smart for our own good sometimes.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like,
I've been told to dumb it down a few times. Yes.
I mean, even
Keep it
my grandmother would say to me, "You're too smart for your own good. You can't get out of your own way." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that was the truth. I couldn't get out of my own way because my own brain would stop me from doing whatever I needed to do because I would try to rationalize something else. But once I knew what I needed to do, I've been on the right track. Once I've been actually listening to myself and not having my brain do the work, but my subconscious do the work, because my brain was broken. My subconscious was giving me the right information the whole entire time. And it was my dumb thinking that just kept saying, shut up. You don't know shit. I got this.
Right.
I got this. Yeah, I got it. All right.
I call it the scientist in my brain. He always wants to figure shit out before he does anything. He always wants to analyze everything and run down every scenario first. And I've done so many times in my life where I've have something so simple right in front of me, but I go, that's too easy. There's something behind this. There's got to be more to this. And I'll wind up not even doing it, just because I'm trying to overanalyze. Right. Sometimes I just got to keep it simple, stupid, and keep moving forward and do what I got to do. And if it's wrong, okay, learn from it. I got to stop. And that's only because I was afraid to make mistakes, but I learned, one of the things that David Goggins teaches and Les Brown teaches is to fail and fail often, because you don't grow from always being at the top. I heard this phrase a long time ago, and it's the most beautiful phrase I've ever seen. I know you've seen the post before. It says, rock bottoms will teach you lessons that mountaintops could never, and it's the truth. Sometimes you have to fall. And I'm not talking about using again. I'm talking about just those small things that we make mistakes in, and be able to observe that mistake and say, okay, how can I learn from this? Now it's a lesson, it's a blessing or a lesson. That's it, and that's how I pick myself up. That's how I try to look at it. And that goes back to that thinking, turn it into a positive, at the very best and very least, I could turn it into a learning experience. That's all it is.
Yeah, and I definitely agree, because if you're not learning from anything and you're not trying to continue to grow, you're going to get stagnant, even in recovery. If you think that you have it, you don't. When you think you have it, you lost it. Yeah, man.
You just lost it, right?
I couldn't agree more. I appreciate you coming on, dude, and talking. I've been wanting to talk for a little bit now, so I appreciate it, dude.
JD, I thanks for having me on, man. It's amazing, man. I appreciate what you do out here. You're a rock star, man, and I'm just happy to be part of the crowd. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I'm gonna be tagging the shit out of you, man, when I post this. So don't worry. I'll be letting you know.
Got you, bro. Thanks, man, and thanks for your support too. All right.
No problem. I'll talk to you, man.
All right, brother. Bye.
All right. See you.